welcome to Monkey Broadcast, the monthly review and discussion show with me, the Jonin Monkey.
And me, Sven the Crusader, 3 weeks later. If this comes out late, blame me because, well, the first time I just didn't show up, and the second time we tried to record this, my internet died.
Yeah, but maybe it's a curse, because, you know, it's October, ooh, Halloween, etc., etc., etc. Overrated holiday. Anyway.
Skeletons, etc.
With that half-assed attempt at a scary background, let's waste no time and get on into the first segment, which is...
Q&A!
This is the section where we answer 6 of the questions sent to us by our listeners. If you'd like us to answer your questions, either leave it in the comments, send it to me via PMs, or tweet me at the Jonin Monkey with the hashtag MBQuestion. I will keep saying it until someone does the last one.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Our first question comes from Infernity Zero.
Has there ever been one bad aspect in an otherwise good story that derailed the whole thing for you?
Oh, how much time have you got? Because there is a list.
Well, I'm just gonna get this out of the way, because it's the only thing that pops to my head, and anyone who has read the Harry Potter series will probably know why I'm complaining. I am perhaps one of the only people in the entire Harry Potter fandom who hates Deathly Hallows. Why? Because I think it should be renamed Harry Potter and the Deus Ex Machina. Or alternately, Harry Potter and J.K. Rowling's failed attempt to emulate George R.R. Martin.
That raises so many questions.
Yeah, with the latter you can kind of guess.
Well, yeah, I mean, part of me is tempted to ask, but since I only ever got as far as Chamber of Secrets of Harry Potter, I seriously doubt I would be able to understand or follow, so...
Yeah, I'd have to bring you up to speed to the 7th book. I'd also have to bring everyone else up to speed with the 7th book.
Yeah, that's fair enough. The thing is, I want to list them all off, but it's either past VGT reviews, or 1 or 2 examples I'm going to mention later in VGT, so...
Maybe just save the ones that you're going to mention later.
Well, Metal Gear Rising's one of them.
Oh, yeah, Wait, you mean that the random senator out of nowhere, with his ridiculous plot turns and hammy delivery, didn't derail the game?
Yeah, that was one of the big complaints I had with that game. It's funny, me and Sven were talking about this some time ago, because you mentioned that you had a story concept that had like a similar twist, and you were wondering how you could make that character similar from Armstrong. My response then is the same as it is now. A, don't treat it for comedy. B, not have the hero end up agreeing with said senator by the end of it.
Yeah. I didn't even play that game, and that whole storyline was ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, there's also another aspect of Metal Gear Rising that I actually didn't get a chance to mention in the main review, and that I've been thinking about doing as a spin-off video, but I might as well do here. One of the other elements of Metal Gear Rising that really annoyed me is, like I said, I did not like the fact that Raiden ended up agreeing with the heroes, because it plays into this mindset that I really dislike, which is that cynicism equals wisdom, because everyone kept saying, Raiden, oh, it's naive, you don't actually care about defending the weak, you're a psychopath who murders people. And the reason I particularly hate that scene where Monsoon, the guy with white hair who talks about killing is a law of nature, the reason I hate that scene in particular is because there's a bit I didn't show where Raiden basically says, yeah, that stuff about me protecting the weak, I think that was a way of keeping my psychotic side, Jack the Ripper, in check. And so, he then gets up, and through a complicated series of events, unleashes said psychotic murderer side, which turns out to be a power-up.
Where do I even begin with that?
Yeah, it's just... Like I said, I enjoyed Metal Gear Rising up to those points, but it's when it got to this idea that somehow Raiden was flawed and these... There's no other way to put it. Murderous psychopaths showed him the light. It's just bollocks. Grade A bollocks. I'm not gonna...
Yeah, I'm not gonna disagree either.
Yeah. But moving away from that, to mention some non-game examples. Let's see, try to speed through a bit of the list. The film Gorgeous. I've mentioned this in another Monkey broadcast. There have been many times where I've clicked on an anime or Crunchyroll thinking that a premise sounds interesting, and then I find out it's mainly a ecchi comedy. Ugh.
Yeah. Oh, do you mind terribly if I interrupt? Because you just brought up anime and manga, and I think I have an example in anime and manga that fits right in. Bleach. I was enjoying it up until Ichigo pulled a power-up out of his ass and killed my favorite villain.
Oh, yes. A power-up that has never been explained to this day, for the record.
Or even revisited. He's just gotten other power-ups. Basically, I was enjoying Bleach up until my favorite villain was killed in a gigantic cop-out.
Pretty much, yeah.
I mean, I have no problem with villains I like losing as long as they get good send-offs. And that was the shittiest send-off as you could give someone.
Now that you've mentioned popular shonen manga, Naruto I'll get into next month, since it's been confirmed that it's ending early in November, so foreshadowing. And
yeah, and just for the record, thank God.
And Fairy Tail, I was enjoying, even with the ridiculously stupid plot points that kept coming out again and again and again, but there was a scene where they decided, okay, we are going to kidnap one of the female leads. Okay, fair enough, that unfortunately happens a lot in manga. What happens after that is the demon strips her naked and uses torture. This includes his magical electrocutions, whipping, and it is all framed with, oh wow, would you look at her curves? Just, yeah.
Oh God, yeah, we discussed this. And if there was one thing that ever made me feel better about the fan service in Bleach, it was that. I don't even think One Piece could top that, and that's saying something.
And yeah, believe it or not, that's not the most sexist thing I've ever seen in an anime and manga.
Believe me, I can see that.
Yes. And by contrast, we have the Infinity Zero second question.
Has there ever been one good aspect of an otherwise bad story that kept you interested?
Well, I could mention Deathly Hallows, but really the only one interesting thing that kept me interested in that was, you know, it being Harry Potter and I having to see how it ends.
Fair enough. I think... Well, first off, I will mention Naruto as well, just because despite how many lows that series falls down, there are still occasional moments where I think, okay, well, that actually makes sense, or, oh, that is actually a nice character moment. This is why I used to like this series. So it does still pull these little bits and pieces out of the fire. The only other two examples I can think of off the top of my head are 90% of Sonic storylines. Like, I know full bloody well that the Sonic storylines make no sense. Like, even if you're one of the Mega Drive or Genesis diehards, even back then, the story made no sense. But even with that nonsensical universe and the numerous plot points that exist, you still get this kind of campy sense that they're still trying to tell the best story that they can, even with all the goofiness. So I can respect it on that level. And by the same note, even though, again, the universe barely makes any sense, and there are just one dumb plot mode after another, I can't entirely hate Ruby, that web series by Rooster Teeth, because there are a lot of problems with it, but there is a strange charm to it that keeps me coming back to it despite all of that.
Yeah, I can see it, and I'm imagining it's more than the music.
Well, the music does help, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, the music is really the only really good point that I know of, so I'm just throwing that out.
Yeah, I mean, I do like elements such as the visual design, and I like the concepts of the fight sequences, even if the animation is sometimes really ropey in those, but So, oh yeah, there's a lot of potential I do find the charm, even if, like I said, over time it has just gotten sillier and sillier. Like, very recently, there is actually one episode where, in a speech that's not related to anything, the headmaster of the hunter school they've been to decides to give a backstory on why a small selection of characters have names named after colours. You know, because, most writers would just say it's a theme and leave it at that, especially since half of these names are actual names, but nope, we need to create a ridiculous convoluted backstory about how people were trying to take away art, so we rebelled by naming our children after colours. And no, I'm not making that up.
That makes no sense on any level.
Yes.
It's like every pretentious art student in France suddenly rebelled against the world.
Yeah, it's just, even despite elements like that, there's still light, a creative spark that keeps me coming back despite how ridiculous it is. Not enough for me to actually buy the DVDs though, but... Are there any other examples you can mention, Sven?
Well, since you mentioned Naruto, I guess I'll make some kind of peace with the series that I used to really enjoy. When it comes to Bleach, this has long since stopped being a factor, but even after Kubo pulled that horrifically shitty plot twist with Ichigo, I could at least glean some enjoyment out of Bleach because I liked the supporting cast. I really liked the supporting cast. Funny how that ties kind of into Naruto. But the sad fact is, ever since that arc, in fact, ever since the final fight with Aizen, all of the heart and soul has been sucked out of that series. So I'm not sure if that really counts anymore, but hey, at least with hindsight, I can say I liked the supporting cast, and I liked the setting, the world it was in.
So yeah, I think that's all the examples we can think of at the top of our heads, so... Okay, Sven, what's the next question?
Our next question comes from Vice of Legends, and looking at this, I'm kind of astounded at my prescience.
Harry Potter series. Good or bad movies? Good or bad movie-based games?
Yeah, I should mention that I've only seen the first two movies, The Philosopher's Stone and Chamber of Secrets, or Sorcerer's Stone as it was known in America for some reason, but...
I guess mythology, but I can't see children in Britain being aware of the Philosopher's Stone. The lore of which, by the way, the movie explains.
Indeed. In my case, like I said, I've only seen those two movies, and here's the thing. If you want a long and short answer, yes, I think they are good movies. The reason I haven't continued to follow the series is because there's nothing bad about the series. Like, I'm not going to go on into a full-out long angry rant like I could do with some other series. It's just that the way the world works, it just annoys me. Like, I'm perfectly okay with fantasy and suspending my disbelief, but I do like there to be some practical reason for it. Like, okay, magic in Final Fantasy. I don't need to know what makes the magic. I don't need a logical explanation for, yes, it is these Spiriticon particles that are just floating around in the air and then they are finited. No, I don't need any of that. Just, what do people use magic for? Do you use it for self-defense and healing? Great, that's fine. Okay. And Harry Potter, it starts off like that, because the classes you've got, like, transfiguration, potions and all of that. You've got the magic separated into different categories. That makes all sense, and I'm fine with it. What doesn't make sense are the elements that just seem to be magic for magic's sake. Like, in the first movie, you've got, you better keep an eye on the staircases, they like to change. Smash them and get a regular staircase that goes where you want it to go.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of the series, which you've probably gleaned by my angry ranting at Deathly Hallows because it disappointed me so much, but I could see an outsider's perspective as a reason not to get into the series because, let's be honest, the series is childish. It's hells of childish.
Yeah, I think I've already made a joke about the moving pictures in Harry Potter, which I said Yu-Gi-Oh cards must be incredibly boring as you summon a Blue Eyes White Dragon and trying to build up like the awesome inspiring of the moment, and it's just a Blue Eyes White Dragon taking a nap and occasionally scratching itself.
I forgot all about that joke.
Yeah, but and another aspect that annoyed me, and that actually leads me into the second part. Quidditch, I really find overrated as a sport, mainly because, okay, here's the thing. I haven't played that many Harry Potter games, but one I did play briefly was at a friend's house. He was a Harry Potter fan, and he had purchased Quidditch World Cup for the PlayStation 2. And here's the thing. We were playing a match, and he was Slytherin, I was Hufflepuff, just for a laugh, and I was completely whooping his ass. I mean, I don't mean to brag, but it got something like, it was something like 2090. I was on top and pretty much dominating the game, mainly because I'd figured out what Hufflepuff's special move was and was abusing it for every inch of his life. But then the snitch shows up. Now, for those of you who don't know, in Harry Potter, the game goes on forever until someone catches the golden snitch. Now, the stats for the Slytherin Seeker and the Hufflepuff Seeker, there is too wide a gap between them. Hufflepuff doesn't stand a chance, so I was already going in with a handicap. But I also could not figure out for the life of me what the controls for the Seeker sections were. And my friend, being the jerk that he was, didn't inform me of those said controls. So, I lost, because he caught the golden snitch first, he gained 150 points, so everything I was doing on the ground before then, everything with all the quaffle, the goals, all of that is pointless because whoever catches the golden snitch wins the game regardless of what's going on in the rest of the match.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm a fan of the series, but looking back, there are some aspects of Harry Potter that make no damn sense.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, I brought that up with a couple of Harry Potter fans in the past, and they've gone, oh, well, it's actually quite easy. If you score 160 points on the ground, then you've automatically won. Right. No, that's not how it works. Here's the thing. In the sport of Quidditch, one goal is 10 points. So you have to get 16 goals and have your opponent score nothing.
Yep.
I don't care what sport you're playing, that's impossible.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you're, like, the champion team going up against a bunch of part-timers who only play Quidditch, like, once every 3 years, which, coincidentally, is the only type of team the England national team can beat, but I digress.
Burn!
Unless you're going up against teams like that, there is no way that kind of score can ever happen. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Like I said many, many times now, sorry about that. I'm a fan of the series, but there are aspects of it that just make no damn sense. Like, for instance, the ridiculous black and white morality. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you are 10 years old or 22 years old. That is not how morality works. All of the villains in Harry Potter are cartoons.
But yeah, even with those weaknesses, I don't want to, like, tear to the series or mock people who like it, because I can see that there are plenty of good elements to the series. Like, I do see, like, there are character-focused elements, and it is a nice, charming world. It's just those little elements are what stop me from getting into it.
Yeah, I guess it's just personal preference. The only reason I'm into it is because I initiated myself into nerdiness whenever I watched the first movie whenever it came out. So it appealed to me at 9 years old, and it hasn't let go of me since. But I'm not much of a fanboy that I can't admit to the series' weaknesses. In hindsight, a lot of them don't even make sense to me anymore.
Fair enough. I guess you would say as well, movie's good overall.
Yeah. As far as the games go, I kind of wouldn't know, except I have played the first 2 games. And in hindsight, my god, those games were terrible.
So not recommendations then.
God, no. Especially not the first two games. They were terrible and the graphics were atrocious.
Okie doke. So, Vice of Legend's second question then, and... Okay, this is gonna be an interesting one.
What do you think your friend's worst warrior failure is in a video game? Not counting the story, so Jonin's is not easy to guess.
Ooh. That's a good one. I can't come up with anything off the top of my head.
Yeah, it's gonna require a bit of thinking. I mean, the evil bastard within me wants to say Bubble Man, but...
It's true, though. It's very true.
Yeah, and plus that's only one game, so... let me think. Again, I'm an evil bastard and I'm just gonna say platforming.
Fair enough. After Mega Man, I can't refute that.
I was thinking more of the cruel experiences we put you through for that short-lived Mario Bros. 3 contest.
That, too. Oh god. War flashbacks.
Sorry, mate.
Oh, it was all in good fun. I laughed at the video whenever it came out, too.
Yeah. But yeah, any guesses on my... No.
Well...
Because let me tell you, there are things I am afraid of.
Well, there's almost a part of me that wants to say those ridiculous rocket barrel sessions in Donkey Kong Country Returns, but...
Oh, God! Damn you! I had blocked those out of my memory, thank you very much.
That's for the flashbacks, you bastard!
Oh, God. That's not even going into the ones in Tropical Freeze.
Well, I see I've made a good guess.
Yeah. It's either that or a final boss you have to grind for, but they don't tell you that.
Oh, yeah. That, too. Yeah, that's my guess. Rocket barrel sessions.
Yeah, that was right on the money with that one.
Man, I didn't even try to make that good a guess. Sorry, by the way.
Yeah, that's fine.
As much as I put up the front of Revenge, I really didn't want to spark flashbacks in anyone else.
Oh, jeez. Yeah. Oh, jeez. So, yeah.
Let's move on before we get any more flashbacks. Our next question comes from our old friend Roy Havenstone.
What do you think movie critics mean when they say, this action scene plays out like a video game I can't play?
Yeah, this is an interesting one. For the record, I hate it when movie critics use phrases like that because it always implies that films are somehow superior and they shouldn't include video game elements, but I think when critics use this line, they refer to how staged events are. Like, the two ways of looking about it are either when the entire movie is staged as exposition, fight, exposition, fight, exposition, fight, exposition, fight, because that kind of mirrors the way that you'll get a bit of gameplay, then a cutscene gameplay, and a cutscene, at least you would in lazy action games. The second is when an action sequence feels incredibly staged. Like, one of the main examples I've seen this line used in is, do you remember that scene in Attack of the Clones when Anakin and Padme are sneaking into the evil separatist base and they end up on a conveyor belt that all the droid parts are on?
Actually, no, I don't, and why I say that is, by that point in the movie, I'd fallen asleep.
Oh, you lucky bastard. Anyway,
I literally slept until the end of that movie.
Yeah, that scene exists, and it's basically the two of them on a narrow conveyor belt, dodging and leaping over obstacles that are coming out of this completely impractical factory setting. So that's pretty much what they mean by that, when it's so ridiculously staged and doesn't seem to follow any other logic besides we need an action sequence.
Wow, I'm just imagining that scene in my head. For the record, you can probably guess by the fact that I fell asleep, I think, as well of Attack of the Clones as I do Final Fantasy VIII.
Yeah.
I'm just imagining that scene in my head. And the only thing I can think of to compare it to is do 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 do.
I'm sure someone's dubbed it over it, but actually, it does actually remind me of one thing, though, now that you brought it up. Another example of this kind of thing is if you could ever sit through Red Letter Media stroke Plinket's like hour-long review of Attack of the Clones, he points out very specifically that the entire fight between Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Count Dooku, it feels like a turn-based RPG battle just because of how forced and scripted it is, like how we use Sith Lightning, that takes you out, the character walks in, use Sith Lightning, block it with sword, then attack, that's...
Yeah, oh yeah, that's actually a really good point, because back in the day whenever I was 10 years old and stupid, I thought that scene was the pinnacle of choreography because nothing in Star Wars had looked like that before, but in hindsight, my god, that scene was clunky.
Yeah, I will admit that there are Phantom Menace still has some good choreography. My problem with it is more the fact that it looks good but doesn't actually mean anything because there's like no immersion into it, but I could do an entirely separate video on that. So.
Yeah, it's just that it's worse in Attack of the Clones. I nearly said Attack on Titan. Good God.
Oh, gee. Attack of the Clones would have been better with Titans.
Yeah, then again, Attack of the Clones would be better with just about anything that isn't George Lucas.
Yeah, but like I said, that's probably what film critics mean when they do say action scenes play out like video games. It's not a term I particularly like, because again, it implies a superiority to video games, which... but...
Yeah, in some cases you can really see what they mean, like... out-of-nowhere platforming sequences in the middle of the movie.
Pretty much, yeah. And I suppose if you want a literal example, there was that really bad Doom movie that just threw in a first-person sequence for no reason.
Oh, thank God I never watched that. Our next question comes from the consummate Toon Junkie 1.
The spaceships of Pluto are attacking. Quickly, you must tell me what flavor of ice cream is their only weakness. Please, Sven and Monkey, you're our only hope.
First of all, Toon Junkie, thanks for the prescient Star Wars reference.
Second, it's a pity they're not dogs. We could have used chocolate.
Or apparently peanut butter. I'm just gonna go right ahead and say... banana. Good old Donkey Kong stock.
That's true. I suppose they would be attracted to it, but the problem is, would the bananas nourish them and make them stronger?
That is a good point.
I mean, in the Donkey Kong cartoon, bananas gave DK super strength. I mean, thankfully that's never transferred into the games, but I suppose that these chips work this way.
That is a very good point. God, I suspect we'd have to call up XCOM, do some research into one of their corpses. That always works in XCOM.
That is true. I mean, failing that, I guess we'd have to try and guess what the opposite of a banana would be.
Maybe oranges.
That is true. They are circular rather than a line.
That is true. They are spherical instead of, linear. I think there's a metaphor to be made to plot lines there, but that's beside the point. I don't know where the hell that came from or why I'm getting so into this question.
That is the joy of Toon Junkie 1.
I actually gave this serious thought. Oh, Thor help me.
Indeed.
I was about to make a Mass Effect reference, too.
Oh, joy. And technically, we've already done 6 questions, but Toon Junkie has 2 more questions that I frankly just want to get out of the way because they are one-word answers, essentially. Well, more or less. Okay, the first question. How much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? And the second question. Who sells sea cells by the seesaw, and are those sea cells safe at my local seashore? Suck it!
Well, you certainly got through the tongue twisters well. I nearly just screwed up saying tongue twisters.
Well, yeah, you thought you could trick me with those one too, Junkie, but little do you know, to actually improve my diction before recordings, I've taken up the habit of doing tongue twisters just before I actually record stuff for VGT, so yeah, sorry, I was prepared for that one.
You've developed a slow resistance to your kryptonite.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's like the Princess Bride. I've spent the last 20 years developing a resistance to tongue twisters.
Oh, dude.
This was a brilliant ending to the Q&A.
Yeah, indeed. On that brilliant note, well, it's quite possibly been one of the weirdest and best Q&A sessions we've ever had.
By the way, thank you, Toon Junkie.
We now move on to...
Reviews!
And thank God this month I have something good to review that isn't The Walking Dead game Season 2.
Yeah, that was one of the most bitter rants I've heard from you in a long time.
I'm hoping I never have to do one of those again.
Me too. Anyway,
Just 2 days ago... Okay, my only review is gonna be kinda short because, simply put, there's no story, and it's kind of revisiting old territory. A couple days ago, I invested in the 2012 reboot of XCOM, XCOM Enemy Unknown. And basically, it's not exactly the same as the XCOM I reviewed back in 2011. It is still a vicious bastard of a game in terms of difficulty, and it is still incredibly enjoyable despite that. But that's mostly all I have to say on the matter. XCOM Enemy Unknown is basically just XCOM UFO Defense, except with actual characters thrown in at various intervals. And whenever I say characters, I kind of mean more archetypes because, well, I'll put it to you like this. One of the characters in question is a mad German scientist. Well, subtly mad, but you get the point.
yeah. Oh, dear. So, whenever I've heard anyone talking about XCOM, it's usually fun UFO shooter and unbelievably hard. But
yeah, it kind of still applies here. I mean, the difficulty is trivial compared to XCOM UFO Defense, and especially XCOM Terror from the Deep. Just earthquake shudders go through me. But it is still incredibly challenging, and in this case, ridiculously fun. Mostly because, well, it touches upon my number one weakness in video games. And that is developing your characters in terms of stats, armor, and weapons.
Aw, fair enough. So, has anything else from the gameplay been improved, or is it just a reskin with some characters thrown in?
Actually, it's been improved immensely because now your characters have skills, which is part of what makes the game easier. Compared to XCOM UFO Defense back in the 90s, it's way easier to be able to, say, take your assault trooper, go into run and gun, charge into the fray, and one-shot your enemy with a shotgun blast, than it is to stand across the map taking pot shots like a numpty and hoping for the best.
Fair enough, so it kind of rewards more risk-taking, I suppose.
Yeah, actually that's a good word for it, because it rewards risk-taking in that the more risks you take, the better skills you get, which enables you, therefore, to take more risks.
Ah, fair enough.
It kind of gets into a vicious cycle, but I'll be damned if that vicious cycle isn't fun.
Fair enough. So, overall, you could probably recommend it then?
Yeah, I could thoroughly recommend it to anyone who has a decent enough computer to play it, for one. And
so I'm out.
Yeah, unfortunately. It would probably turn all the buildings into black, shapeless blobs. And two, I recommend it to anyone with the patience to play it, because even though it's easier than its predecessors, it is still XCOM. You will die harder than a protagonist in a George R.R. Martin novel.
Yeah, I'll think about that one with some precaution then.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're more patient than I am, so you'd have that part covered, but as far as the computer goes, you may want to wait.
Yeah.
Or get it on PS3, I guess.
That's true. I forgot it's on consoles as well.
Yeah, I've just always thought of XCOM as a computer series. But, yeah, that's my recommendation. My incredibly brief recommendation. XCOM good.
Okay, fair enough. And on my end, I'm also reviewing a video game, and one that's been all the rage. Well, it had a brief window of all the rage, and then Smash Bros. Sort of 3DS came out, and then people stopped talking about it. Hyrule Warriors for the Nintendo Wii U.
Which I've been hearing a lot about, because my best friend will not stop playing it.
Yeah, it's a kind of fusion of the Legend of Zelda series and the Dynasty Warriors series, and I'll be honest, this is my first experience with the whole Dynasty Warriors elements, and I was trying it mainly because, as I mentioned in a previous video, I was getting kind of tired of the Legend of Zelda formula, and I wanted to play something that's set in that universe, but shakes up the formula a bit, and my god, this is a fun surprise. Because, here's the thing, in the build-up to this, there were two common complaints. One was that there seemed to be too many female characters and not enough male characters, to which I can only say, oh, the delicious irony.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one.
The second was that everyone kept saying, oh, the gameplay looks so boring, you're just cutting through wave after wave of enemies with no resistance. The thing about that, I was kind of worried that might be the case too, but it's not really about the individual battles. I mean, yeah, in the Dynasty Warriors series, your character is incredibly overpowered and can take out like 3 minions with one slash. Thing is though, those small battles don't matter where you are and what you're aiming for. Like, whenever you get into a main battle, there are conditions which are always changing at every single moment in the map. So, you'll be fighting on one corner, and then someone says, there's a keep to the west that is bombing our base with catapults. You need to take out that keep fast. So, you have to abandon what you're doing, run over to that keep, and then take out as many enemies as you can in that keep, and then defeat its captain in order to claim it as your own. You'll then be told that the enemy base is opened up, so you can take out their commander, but they've also sent a faction straight to your base, so you have to... It's the point where you have to make a judgment call of, okay, do I try to take out the commander as fast as possible and end the battle early, or do I go back to my base and defend it, just to make sure that it's not taken over whilst I'm fighting? And it's actually... It gets kind of engrossing at points when you're desperately trying to decide which target you should focus on, like who has priority and all of that, so... It is mostly action-based, but there's a hint of strategy involved, which honestly makes it appealing to me, I'm not gonna lie.
Wow, it's funny you should mention that, because that's actually an element they added to, coincidentally enough, XCOM. There are times in XCOM Enemy Unknown where you'll have 3 missions come up all at once, and you can only choose to do one. In the country you choose to do the mission in, their panic rating goes down while the others go up. So, it's a balance. You have to balance between reward and some of your member nations leaving. So, I can totally see the appeal of that.
Indeed. There is a story mode, or legend mode as it's called, that provides context for all of these fights, and I'll be honest, it's not the greatest plotline ever, even if you're not comparing it to other Legend of Zelda games, it's not the greatest. I still like it overall for 2 reasons. First of all, there are like, some really cool-looking scenes, like, just in the way it's shot. There's, like, one point in the ending where, Link's having to put the Master Sword back into its pedestal in order to stop the, evil of the weak. He tries to put it in, but it's too much for him, so, Zelda rushes up to help, and the two of them push it together, which, honestly, it's just such a cool-looking shot on its own. There are some interesting concepts that do occasionally appear throughout the story, like the new villain that turns up, Sia. I do kind of dislike the fan-servicey nature of her costume, but there's a sort of faint pseudo-reason for it. Basically, her backstory and the cutscene that explains this actually uses Wind Waker-style toon animation, which looks really good. But basically, there's this idea that there is a Guardian of Time who watches over the course of events, making sure things are supposed to go the ways they're supposed to. But then she develops this crush on Link, or at least the idea of Link, because the story acknowledges that there are multiple incarnations of Link that all share the same hero soul. And a small part of her resented the fact that she could never pursue that dream because, well, to be blunt, canon relationship, Link and Zelda all the way, so... And there's an evil spirit which... Oh, what the hell, it's Ganondorf, everyone saw that coming.
It's always Ganondorf. Always!
Yeah. Indeed. And like a part of Ganondorf's spirit played on that and so on attempted her down the dark path, which I actually really like as a concept, because, okay, yeah, admittedly it's not the most progressive thing, but it provides a new angle, and it's actually, I do like the idea of a villain who's personally motivated to get at Link, as opposed to every other villain who is, I must go after the MacGuffin!
And then Link just happens.
Yeah. Yeah, I do like it on that end, and it actually leads me to... Okay, it admittedly only happens for like a chapter, but the fact it's even attempting this is amazing in itself. They actually attempt to give Link character development.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to wrap my head around that.
Yeah, it's... Admittedly, like I said, it only lasts for one chapter, and in the end, the answer turns out to be, friendship saves the day! But basically,
My Little Pony, yada yada yada.
Yeah, basically it implies that after Link gets the Master Sword, there's like a brief indication that Link assumes that he can defeat anyone and anything on his own because he has that blade, which... I won't spoil the rest of what happens, but basically, the fact that it even alludes to the fact that Link may experience character development, or the fact that it's even acknowledging Link has any characterization or flaws at all, is still something to be praised, even if it's not that great in execution. So.
Well, at least someone tried.
Yeah. So, yeah, overall, storyline a bit cheesy and naff. Admittedly, it does have elements that aren't explained, like the fact that, once again, Zelda disguises herself as Sheik, but there's no good reason for why she does this.
Oh dear.
Yeah, it's just, hello, I'm Sheik, and then just hands around for a bit, despite the fact that the group at that point is desperately looking for Zelda, and she could have easily told them, I am Zelda, by the way, but no, she just decides to stay as Sheik for no good reason.
Except apparently to screw with them.
Yeah, I suppose people really wanted to play as Sheik, I don't know.
That is a hilarious mental image, by the way. Zelda just staying as Sheik to screw with people.
Pretty much, yeah. That leads me to the characters themselves, and the base control system is pretty good on its own. Like, one of the main aspects as we draw people into this game is that it's not just Link who's the main playable character this time. Like, he is the most balanced as a fighter, like the easiest to use, and he gets like the biggest variety of weapons. But there are many other cast members like Zelda, Impa, and even some classic characters like Midna and Darunia who are all coming in as well. And they all have their own different fighting styles, their own advantages and disadvantages. Like, Impa uses like this quick draw style of very heavy attacks. Darunia is the very slow but powerful hammer wielder. Midna is actually one of the most fun characters to use because her style is basically go on a rampage. It's
somehow that seems fitting.
Yeah, most of the attacks either seem to be send phantom wolves to charge at people or smash people with a giant fist.
I like that style.
Yeah. The fun is experimenting with each character's fighting style, learning how they work and what various attacks I have. Like, everyone has a special attack, but everyone has their own series of special attacks, and the animations look glorious, but they are very quick, so they balance it nicely between flashy but not taking so long. You're tapping your thumbs while you're waiting for it to be done. So.
That's good. There are games that do that.
Yeah. out of all of the characters, I do have people I like to use, like Midna, and Russo's also kind of fun because she just creates bubbles of water that encase large groups of enemies in them, which is really fun in itself. But
oh god, more Bubble Man flashbacks. Sorry.
But I have to say, surprisingly enough, my personal favourite character to use is Zelda. Not because of the whole significance of, oh, this is the first time Zelda's been playable, but the fact that she is just so fun to play as, because her standard weapon, and the one I like to use, is a rapier, and she fights in kind of this graceful duel style. Like, she'll occasionally whip out her light arrows, but her whole fighting style is based around gracefully dancing around the battlefield and then raining combo after combo on the opponent, which is just, oh my god, it's so much fun.
Wow, the temptation to sprite Zelda as a Fire Emblem Lord has grown strong.
Actually, the funny thing is that it is sort of faintly similar to how she fights. In fact, one of my favourite moves to use as her is that you'll build up a combo, and then she'll just continuously sidestep in a trail. It's kind of useful, like, one, it looks cool, two, bosses have a tendency to block your attacks and then try and counter, so you perform that style, the enemy blocks, and then they start the combo, but you're already zipped behind them, so then you can just turn around and punish them for it, which is... It is such a fun move to use. I just love exploiting it.
You know, between the fact that my best friend has not stopped playing it for the last 2 weeks and this review, I'm getting the feeling that maybe I ought to, at some point, try this game.
Yeah, I would recommend it. I'm not sure if it's worth buying a Wii U for. I mean, I'd wait until the system library expanded a little bit on that front, but otherwise, yeah, I'd say it is really enjoyable, especially... Legend mode is like a good solid experience on its own, but then you've got adventure mode, which is the best way I could describe it is that it's a challenge mode, but all of the challenges are on this grid that looks like the original 8-bit Legend of Zelda, which is it's weird, but it's fun, especially when you get to see like 8-bit sprites of Ganondorf and all of the others. It is the reason why I bring it up is because that not only is it like a large undertaking in itself. I mean, I still have yet to finish that, but you can unlock as well as additional characters. Like you need it to unlock Ruto, Zant, and Girahim. But you can pick up new weapons for the characters, and some weapons like drastically change their fighting styles. Like Link gets like the fire rod, which turns him into like a combination spellcaster and axe wielder. It makes sense in context. And then it gets from weapons like that to some absolutely crazy ones. Like I'm trying to think of the best way to explain this weapon. One of the most difficult weapons to use, but the most amusing, is Link can summon the Great Fairy as a weapon, which basically involves the Great Fairy stuffing Link inside a bottle and then just stamping everything in its path. Like, she is the same size she is in the regular Legend of Zelda games, so she basically towers over everything on the battlefield, and she's just stomping and, like, slapping enemies aside, and it's one of the most surreal things, but it's... And the funny thing is, like, at the end of each challenge, it's like a victory animation, and the animation is basically the Great Fairy flying around, and Link having this, like, gloomy look on his face, like, but I didn't get to do anything.
I've actually heard of that mode. I died laughing then, and I'm dying laughing now.
Yeah. It's crazy, but it's insanely fun. I also want to mention one positive thing, which is the music. Like, one of the few gripes I have with this game is that the music is not loud enough because, my god, it's a real joy to listen to. It's, the best way I can describe it is that it's classic Legend of Zelda orchestra, but mixed with hard rock.
Oh yeah, you showed me the final battle theme. That was awesome.
Indeed. In fact, actually, that reminds me of a good comparison. It kind of, with the mixture of the orchestra and like hard guitars, for any heavy metal fans out there, it sounds a lot like Blind Guardian instrumentals. Like, the only thing you need just to make the final battle music even more awesome is Hans Zee singing in the background. That's the only way I can think. Like, seriously, look up Eclipse of the World on the guitar version. That is just epic.
Having heard it, I agree.
Yeah. I would also recommend hunting down Eclipse of the Moon guitar version. That is also a very good track. But anyway. I mean, my god, it actually made the Legend of Zelda cave theme rocking.
Holy crap! Okay, that's impressive.
Yeah.
I might just look up the entire soundtrack on YouTube later. Pro tip,
Yeah.
I'm gonna!
Indeed. Like I said, it's not 100% perfect. I do have some small gripes of it. I've already mentioned the low volume of the music. First of all, I will say though, even keeping in mind like the whole strategic elements of the battlefield, there are going to be some repetitive elements, and well, some people may find it annoying that they're the only person on the battlefield who can seem to do anything. Like, the AI, it can do certain things on its own. Like, sometimes you'll see that an AI member did take out an enemy captain, but at the same time, there are constant moments when you're fighting and you'll hear, Captain is in trouble, go ahead and rescue them, and you're thinking, oh, for feck's sake, can't you do anything by yourself for 5 minutes? And it's also kind of annoying where you, like, enter time, okay, I think I'll capture this outpost, that should keep the enemy off me for 5 minutes. You then do whatever you're doing, turn back, and the outpost has already been taken again. You kind of... it's all going to come down to whether or not that kind of repetition irritates you. Me, I'm used to it with other games, and like I said, the action and the different strategies on each map more than make up for it, in my opinion. The thing that does get kind of annoying is, oddly enough, the elements that were added in from Legend of Zelda.
Oh god, that's a bad sign.
Yeah, basically, in keeping in tradition with the Legend of Zelda, you can pick up the classic items, like the bombs, the arrows, the hook shots. They're not very useful, I've got to be honest. Like, the most of the time, the weapons can only be used in very rarely, like in very specific circumstances. Like a bomb can be used to blow up a rock. A hookshot can be used on a ledge, one specific ledge throughout the map, and only that specific ledge. For some reason, other ledges you can't use it, for reasons I yet to grasp. Arrows can only be used on Deku Babas, which appear like once in a blue moon. Sometimes there are certain enemies that are weak to certain items, like you can use bombs to throw a shield moblin into the air, and that allows you to juggle them. But the only problem is, you can also take out the enemies much quicker and more effectively by just attacking them in the back.
So basically, there's no point.
Pretty much, yeah. And there are two ways you can switch between weapons. Both are very fiddly and awkward. Like, you can either press the D-pad to cycle through the weapons on like this horizontal bar, or you can use the Wii Pad touchscreen, and then you have to click and drag to whichever section of the screen the item is on.
Oh, that just sounds annoying.
Yep. Not tap an area of the screen, that would make sense. No, you have to click and drag.
Not tap the area of the screen, of course not. That would be good game design. Wait, what?
The second element is, again, another element they brought over from Legend of Zelda is the giant bosses, like the Dodongo King, Gomo, etc. Hey, okay, when I first saw them, I thought, oh, awesome, this is another strategy element to throw in. This is something unique only to this game. I bet Dynasty Warriors have never had this. The problem is, how do I explain this? Okay, regular-sized bosses, like these are the characters like Girahim, Sia, Ganondorf, etc. They're tough, but they're fun to play against because essentially you can make up your own strategies on the fly. Like, you can either hand back and observe their movements and evade until you see a weak spot. You can dodge an attack and wait for the weak point meter to come up so you can take out larger chunks of their energy. You can try and trap them with special attacks you can't guard. You can try and block and punish them when you see a lag in their animation. You can use a spirit focus to just break through their guards. You know, there are a wide variety of options, so you can just invent your own strategy for each battle. With the giant bosses, there is only one strategy, and it relates back to you have to use one specific item, and you can only use that item in maybe like one or two specific attacks. Like King Dodongo, you have to wait until he's taken ages breathing in, and then you throw in the bombs like every other Legend of Zelda game, and Then, once they lie on the floor, their weak point meter appears, and you have to hack at that until it goes down to 0 so that you can take off a larger chunk of their health. As you can imagine, this gets repetitive and tedious over the course of the game, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I can kind of understand that.
Yeah.
That'd just get tiring.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, the only one of these giant bosses I found enjoyable was Beast Ganon, because that actually, like, mixed up the weaknesses. Like, you had to use a variety of different items against him and try and figure out which attack meant which item. The problem is that just highlighted how awkward the item-changing system was, so...
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, but yeah, gripes aside, I'd still recommend the game for all. I'm having fun playing it, and I'm looking forward to the new DLC packs, and I think the next one that's coming out is Majora's Mask themed, and that's got me very excited.
And me mildly terrified. Seriously, that game scared the shit out of me.
That's why I love it. Well, not specifically for scary Sven, but anyway.
Hey, wait a goddamn minute.
But yeah, additional content the DLC is adding. It is a fun game with a lot to do, and I'm not, maybe the appeal would be lost on you if you're not a Legend of Zelda fan, but even if you're just casually aware of the series, I would suggest picking it up. If you like action games that can stand a bit of repetition, it is a lot of fun, I've got to be honest.
Well, in that case, again, coupled with the fact that one of my friends has not been able to peel away from the game for the last week, I'll take that as a recommendation.
Hooray! Point is, solid recommendations from us this week, so it's time to finish off this podcast with...
Quickfire reviews!
Once again, we review everything else we've read, watched or played, but within the maximum time limit of 60 seconds. Since I'm the only one with quick time reviews this week, let's go with the very few things I've seen.
Papers, Please, an indie game Sven reviewed on Monkey Broadcast very recently. Surprisingly fun, I've got to be honest. I mean, I'm interested in the idea of being a passport control officer in this grim dictatorship, but what surprised me is just how fun and intuitive the gameplay system is. It's not just one of those games that's all about the concept and not about the gameplay. There is a lot of challenge and fun to be had in it as well, so yeah, if you're looking for a cheap but compelling indie game, I can definitely recommend Papers, Please.
That's just about the sum of my review, as far as I can recall.
Fair enough. Two more subjects to go.
First up, Sword Art Online Season 3, or Sword Art Online 2 as it's known. Yeah, for some reason, people telling me that it's not as bad as the second one brought me back into it, and you know what? It generally isn't as bad as the second and first seasons. I mean, there are still elements in it I can laugh at just for how overly dramatic it was, and there's one scene that was trying way too hard to be intimidating using sexual assault, and that was going way too far, but overall, the rest of the series, it was still an enjoyable watch, even if there were plenty of times when I was laughing at it rather than with it.
Well, at least it's got the so bad it's good factor down.
Yeah, pretty much. Finally,
When Superpowers Become Commonplace, new anime series that just started recently. Only watched the first episode, but I got to admit, there is a strangely amusing charm to it. Basically, the premise is kids get superpowers and just goof around with them, which is kind of funny on its own, but yeah, overall, I'm looking forward to seeing where this series goes, even if it's just one of those silly but enjoyable throwaway series in the end.
Huh. I might have to check that out because I'm a fan of silly, enjoyable, throwaway comedy series, which, yeah, it shows in my huge adoration of Ouran Host Club.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, it is filled of, like, goofy jokes and nitbits. It kind of makes some stabs at this genre. Like, there's one time when the guy is loudly... there's one where one of the more energetic characters is loudly expositing on what everyone's power does, and one of the characters was quietly says in the background, "Who are you talking to?"
That's wonderful. And every time I imagine something like that in my head something just says, "My ham is palpable."
Oh god, it doesn't. Yeah, that guy. I should also mention that character is also one of the hammiest. But anyway,
somehow I guessed.
But yeah, really amusing all things considered. So I'd recommend that. I've also been playing Beyond Two Souls recently, but I'm saving that for a VGT, because, man, there's a lot to talk about in that one.
Yeah, that's David Cage.
But yeah, that's all we have for Monkey Broadcast, so as usual, feel free to send us any questions, and if you want to see more mini reviews or updates on video progress, then follow me on Twitter at the Jonin Monkey. But this is the end of our podcast, so until next month, I've been the Jonin Monkey.
And I've been Sven the Crusader. This has been a review of Hyrule Warriors. Always beware of pledge discrimination.
That was Monkey Broadcast, a monthly review and discussion show hosted by the Jonin Monkey and Sven the Crusader. If you feel that you've been the subject of slander or that your copyright has been misused, please PM me and I'll try and get round to fixing it as soon as possible. We also welcome any comments, be it feedback or your own viewpoints on any of the things we've discussed. Until next month, have fun kids!